Hi, I'm Shawna, and here's my partner, Jonna, and we are Support Jeffco Kids. We also have with us Spencer here, who's one of our volunteers. He's a junior at one of the largest high schools in Jefferson County and an incredible advocate. Spencer also happens to be on the Collaborative Monitoring Committee for the school district and one of the student committee members. And we want to have him talk a little bit about that committee recommendation and what that means, and also to get his opinions and experience as to what things look like in school these days and going forward. So, Spencer, tell us about the Collaborative Monitoring Committee's recommendation that's being made to the board.
So the recommendation has four primary points. The first one is waiting till the county is in level blue on the state's dial system. The second is not letting up on the COVID mitigation plans that are already in place, like masks, like social distancing in the hallways, stuff like that. The third is having all student-facing faculty, so teachers, bus drivers, staff like that, fully vaccinated with both doses and the 2-week incubation period for that second dose. And then the date with that means that we wouldn't be returning in person till no earlier than April 12th. And that date is depending on the vaccine distribution for the schools. We might get faster vaccine distribution, God willing, but it's really it's a tentative date. And the fourth and final one is opportunity for admin and staff to figure out the scheduling of bringing everyone back fully in person.
Really good information. Thank you for that, Spencer. Um, I want you to talk a little bit about you've been in high school. Obviously, this is your third year. And I'd like you to talk a little bit about what passing periods usually look like and what they look like now while you're in hybrid. And what also your classrooms look like. Do we have the 6 feet of distancing? What really happens? Because as parents, when you're in high school, secondary education, we don't volunteer nearly as much as we did when you were in elementary school. So, and this year volunteers are not allowed in at all. So, would love to know from you as a student what's your experience pre-pandemic with those things, and what's your experience now?
So passing period wise, pre-pandemic, more or less it was chaos in some parts of the hallways, especially in the mostly traffic parts. So for example, my school has two main staircases. Those during our passing periods would always be packed with people under normal circumstances. In the normal hallways, we'd be crowded in like sardines. Now though, with hybrid, it's a bit more orderly and there's definitely more space. And with the school doing directional hallways, that has definitely aided to making more of that space. And then in terms of social distancing in classrooms, my school does it pretty well. We have the desks and the students at the desk staggered, so there's a certain amount of distance between each student while they're sitting there in class. And the teachers are very good at enforcing those social distancing regulations.
Very good. That's good to know. Um, do your parents talk to you about this as well to find out what it looks like?
Yes, they do.
Awesome. And Jonna, feel free to jump in with some questions too. Since Jonna's not on the committee, she's going to have a different perspective.
Well, actually, listening to you talk a little bit about this, Spencer, I'd be kind of curious what you hear from other students, friends that are in your circle, maybe students that you aren't super close with, just in general chatter. I'd kind of like to know what in general some of the other students that are saying.
So specifically about going 100% in person.
Yes.
So generally they're hesitant about it. because we've been living through this pandemic for almost a year now, like full year. And we have seen our own classmates be hospitalized for months on end. We have seen our own family members get sick, our neighbors, our community members. So we're tentative about about what the effect of doing it too early would be.
Mhm. Thank you for that, Spencer. And since we're doing so much work on suicide prevention, specifically youth suicide prevention, um, we haven't taken a position one way or another. And there are people in the community who feel really, really strongly that we need to have you 100% in school. And there are people who feel really, really strongly that everyone should be remote. It's kind of all over the place, and certainly based on the mental health calls that we're having. And just for the record, suicides have gone down during the pandemic, but mental health calls have gone up considerably. So it's great that people are asking for help, but this is a traumatic experience for everyone in our schools, and most certainly you as students have an extended family, whether it's your parents and aunts and uncles, your grandparents. Some people are seeing these family members and some people aren't. So we know that it's a traumatic experience, and your responses as students, it's a normal response to an abnormal condition. Dr. Leach keeps saying this, and she's 100% right. It's a normal response to an abnormal condition. Um, how do you feel about your work on the monitoring committee, and how transparent it's been in the process?
I think it's been fairly transparent. And I think especially like how the committee has welcomed these student members, I think that has been great for the process.
I agree. So you've been wonderful additions to this committee. Schools are most definitely a source of the community in general. So, every attachment, all of your coaches, all of your extracurriculars that have been cut down also this year, and your opportunities to do extra things. Do you feel like your fellow students are doing okay?
I think they're doing as well as they can be, considering the circumstances that we're all in.
Right. Jonna, do you have some?
Yeah, so I just going back to your friends, other students that you talk with a lot about this, and I know that you said that they're a little tentative about the going back 100% face to face. Have you heard Have you heard a lot of students push back on that so much that they would even consider maybe not choosing not to go to that particular school, or choose a different route for education? Does it have them that concerned, or does that make sense what I'm asking?
Personally, I haven't heard anything about it. But that being said, many of my friends right now are already doing 100% remote as it is. So this change wouldn't affect them as much as it would affect others, like me that are doing hybrid.
Okay. And just for clarity too, the monitoring committee and in those discussions did ask of the district too, those who are remote will be allowed to continue remote. And if you wanted to stay on hybrid, you could also still stay on a hybrid path. So, you know, there's some grace given there for the various risk levels in various homes, and it's a really difficult situation. So of course 100% back in person may also impact families who are doing hybrid because of additional risk factors that would be brought into the home with more exposure to more people. Yep. Okay, so Spencer, do you feel good about this recommendation that we made? and it was almost unanimous on the committee, right? We had one person on the committee who was, I'm going to let you use your words to explain the one person who wasn't unanimous.
This one person preferred that there wasn't a specific date set for reopening, which is understandable.
Right. And that's why our exact recommendation has the asterisk to note that the date is dependent on when all staff who choose to be vaccinated receive both doses. And there was a rumor earlier today on social media as well that the district was requiring vaccinations, mandating them for staff, or people couldn't work there anymore. And that's false. Just want to make sure that that's clarified. That's false.
I don't think they can legally do that, actually.
Right. So yeah, so that's a whole other thing. And of course, we don't have students on the vaccination list yet either. So we just have our staff members. And I want to make sure we clarify too, the school district doesn't hold doses of any of the vaccines. Neither does Jeffco Public Health. So those are distributed from the state to health entities and organizations who are professional vaccine providers. So anything else you want to add to this, Spencer?
Just that I think it's very important that we do not rush into fully reopening yet. Because though teachers may start be getting their vaccines, students are still going to have to be taking whatever they get at school back home with them. Like my father, though, he wouldn't like me saying this, he's not on the younger side. He is more at risk. Though COVID might not personally affect my health, I could bring it home to him if we open too soon.
That's a really good point. So, and for those of us, I'm the same. So, waited to have children until later in my life. So, I'm a little on the older side too. I appreciate you saying that. Now, the COVID monitoring committee, like all committees, makes this recommendation to the board. And it is also up to the board to determine whether they accept our recommendation or not. So we may have some advocacy efforts to talk further about this. Most certainly, Spencer, I told everybody on the committee as well, you are actually probably taking math and science classes right now that far exceed what I took in college. So, and some of our administrators at the cabinet level as well. So, which is one reason why you have always impressed me so much. Jonna, I know you have something to add here. Go right ahead.
I just wanted to ask one more question. So the committee says, and we're talking about no earlier than April 12th. Is there something, an ideal date in your head that you think would work? I know what, spring break, you come back from spring break April 5th, is that right?
Yes, that's right. And I think in terms of ideal date, just when all of those other factors that I previously listed are all those boxes are checked. So when we have those each student facing faculty with both shots and the 2-week incubation and the time for scheduling and level blue, if all those things are ensured, then I think that's when we can go back to 100% in person.
Right. And I think it's crucial that we continue to have these conversations. The Collaborative Monitoring Committee regarding COVID mitigation plans is an ongoing thing that we're going to be continuing to look at that. Again, our ability to vaccinate our entire education staff that interact with kids is based on the number of doses we get from the state for our health organizations. And we all also have parents, grandparents who are in that over 70, over 65 place where those people still haven't been vaccinated either. So we have some major problems with doses that are certainly no fault of the Jeffco Public School District or for Jeffco Public Health. We're all sort of in a holding pattern. It's certainly getting better. So from what we can see, but still an awkward time. Spencer, do you have any last words you want to share with people about, this recommendation and about even the committee? Anything you want to say?
Just that I cannot stress this enough. Do not rush into this.
Thank you. Spencer, you always impress me. So we are so appreciative of you and you using your voice and joining in. Students are so very valuable. You are the ones who are actually in the middle of all this and experiencing everything firsthand. So you are the main stakeholder. And most certainly our students are the most important part of anything that we do. So we appreciate you very, very much. And thank you for taking your time on Valentine's Day to spend a little bit of time and talk about this with us. And we look forward to maybe doing another one of these videos and doing an update later. So thank you. And we'll talk to you all soon.
Thank you for having me.